Okay, let's continue reading. Last time we stopped at the end of page 4, so this is where we start, and we're going to read page 5 today. В половине 9 мистер Дурсель взял свой портфель, клюнул миссис Дурсель в щеку и попытался на прощание поцеловать Дадли. Let's stop here, since it's a long sentence. So, в половине 9 is a time reference, and I'm sure you know how to tell time in Russian, but probably the в половине 9 or any time references that have 30 in them might be tricky. Yeah, so here we basically say not 5:30 or 5:30. We say in the middle of the next hour. So here we have половине 9 in the middle of the 9th hour of the day. So when we have the hour starting, yeah, so let's say 8 and 9. So the logic of it is that we have reached half of the 9th hour and of the 9th hour. So половина 9, в половине 9. So what happened? В половине 9 мистер Дурсель взял свой портфель, клюнул миссис Дурсель в щеку и попытался на прощание поцеловать Дадли. So here we have a lot of verbs that are perfective because we're describing what happened. He took his briefcase, he kissed, or in this case, pecked, kind of like a little kiss that's not really a kiss, миссис Дурсель в щеку, попытался, he tried, he attempted to do something. What did he attempt to do? To kiss. He attempted to complete an action of kissing, or, for it to make it happen. That's why all of these verbs are perfective verbs, and whoever we kiss is accusative. You cannot really see it here because Dudley ends in E, and names that end in E don't really change, like Charlie, Dudley, Missy, and so on. Okay, let me remove that real quick, and we'll continue reading. Но промахнулся, but he missed, потому что, let's go to the next page, потому что Дадли впал в ярость, что с ним происходило довольно часто. Now let's take a look at the original. Yeah, so he picked up his brief, pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal at the walls. So I would say throwing a tantrum is more of a frustration, and it's, I would say, впасть в ярость or впал в ярость is the expression that we use to describe somebody who is extremely angry. So like in rage. Впасть в ярость literally means to fall into rage. So I would say this translation is not really describing what's going on with Dudley. And here it says, что с ним происходило довольно часто. That, happened to him pretty often. And the word довольно is another way to say очень. It's, or like pretty often, да? Довольно часто. Довольно часто. Okay, let's take a look. Was having a tantrum. So yeah, so the translator, I would say, added a little bit here, and not the best translation for throwing the tantrum. And also the next sentence, он раскачивался взад-вперед на стульчике, ловко выуживал из тарелки кашу и заляпывал ей стену. Это действительно баловство. Да? So дети балуются, kids are messing around. It really doesn't explain the word ярость here. So what Dudley was doing, according to the sentences, he was rocking back and forth on his chair. Ловко выуживал. Выуживал is, it's an interesting verb that literally means to get something from a very narrow space. So узкий, уже, yeah, are the words that describe something narrow. Узкий is narrow, уже narrower or more narrow. So выуживать is, like let's say if you open a can with I don't know, pickles, or a jar with pickles, and you really need to like put your hand in there and like grab something on it with some effort, that's выуживать. So, and that's what Dudley, I guess, was doing with his oatmeal. And then we have "Ух ты моя крошка." Sorry, let me remove that. «Ух ты моя крошка!» со смехом выдавил из себя мистер Дурсель, выходя из дома. And what did he say? "Little tyke," chortled Mr. Dursley as he left the house. And the phrase "little tyke," that's in the original, I think it kind of means little kid. So in this case, the translator said "Ух ты моя крошка." To be honest, I do not imagine any grown-up Russian-speaking man who would say it to a kid like that. "Ух ты моя крошка." Крошка, I would say, is a term that I would expect for a guy to use as a term of endearment for his young girlfriend. So it kind of has to be like young woman. Крошка моя, крошка. So kind of like younger than him. And so here I'd say maybe something like малыш would be better. Like, ну и малыш. Что за малыш? To express what Mr. Dursley was thinking. And then we have the word выходя из дома. You probably remember that verbs like that are gerunds, and it's the gerund of the active gerund of the present tense, means while he was, or as he was leaving the house, or in English, as he left the house. So выходя is kind of like as he was leaving, he was kind of like saying these words. And my channel has several videos about gerunds, so feel free to check them out if you need more information. Okay, what happens next? Он сел в машину и выехал со двора. Сел в машину, that's how we say in Russian, got into his car. So literally we're sitting down into the car, that's why it's accusative. And then выехал со двора. So here we have he just backed out of the driveway. In Russian we use the verb of motion выехать. So if that's двор, the car was here, and then it выехало. That's how we use the prefix вы. Left a specific area, was here and not here anymore. And двор, yard, is kind of like an open space, so we use, so двор is an open space, that's why when we're leaving it, we're using the preposition с rather than is. Он выехал с двора. For going into the yard, we actually use в. Он вышел во двор. But when we're leaving it, он выехал со двора. Okay, let's continue. На углу улицы мистер Дурсель заметил, что происходит что-то странное. На тротуаре стояла кошка и внимательно изучала лежащую перед ней карту. На углу, you probably remember that some short words, some short masculine words like угол, сад, most, when they're talking about a location, like on the corner, on the bridge, in the garden, they actually have to use the letter U for the prepositional ending. Now, when we're talking about the bridge, about the garden, about the angle, we would still use the е. Я говорю об этом мосте, о нашем саде, and so on. But when it's a location, which is on the corner of the street, that's when we switch to U. Okay, на углу улицы он заметил, he noticed, что происходит что-то странное. That something odd or strange is going on. Or in English, it's the first sign of something peculiar. I think it's a pretty good translation, like something odd, something strange. На тротуаре стояла кошка и внимательно изучала лежащую перед ней карту. Is a pretty complex translation for a cat reading a map. in the English original. Now, so we have на тротуаре. Trottoir, it's the zone where the pedestrians walk on the street. Стояла кошка, a cat was standing, и внимательно изучала. You probably know this, the verb изучать as to study something as a major, например. Я изучаю бизнес в университете. But it also means to study something in detail, like so that you know it very well. So it's a good translation, or in this case, addition. Да? Изучала что? Карту, accusative, whatever we're studying is accusative. And here we have карта. What kind of map? The one that was in front of her. And again, that's kind of like the translator's edition. And they're using the word лежащий, which is the present tense participle. Лежат, лежащ, лежащую перед ней карту. Лежать is the verb of positioning that in a lot of contexts just replaces the verb is, the map that was in front of her. And again, on my channel, there are several videos that have a lot of examples for the verbs of positioning. So, карта лежала перед ней, перед кошкой. Okay, let's continue reading. В первую секунду мистер Дурсель даже не понял, что именно он увидел. Но затем, уже миновав кошку, затормозил и резко оглянулся. Okay, in the original, for a second, Mr. Dursley didn't realize what he had seen, then he jerked his head around to look again. So again, Russian translation is just a little bit more complex. So в первую секунду Mr. Dursley даже не понял, he didn't realize, perfective verb, что именно, what exactly he saw, что именно он увидел. Perfective verb. Но затем is another way to say потом, да, не потом, но затем. And here we have уже миновав кошку. So it's another gerund. And миновать is that kind of like a very interesting verbs that's not used very often, to pass by. So миновать, and we often use it in the expression беда, like something bad that's happening, миновала, or not, или не миновала, so it didn't pass by, yeah, or passed by, like something that didn't happen or did happen. So in this case, уже миновав кошку, затормозил. We don't have it in the original, but I think it makes sense because he was driving a car, and the translator added затормозил, which is like hit the brakes, yeah, and that's what we say. Машина затормозила. We also use this verb to express this kind of like cognitive hiccup, when we're like, we need to know something or we should know something, and we're like, oh my god, я торможу, yeah? Я затормозила и не вспомнила, что сказать, и не вспомнила ответ. Okay, и резко оглянулся. Оглянулся is to look back, kind of like turn around and look back. And резко is kind of like a very swift motion. So that's a good translation for kind of like he jerked his head around to look again, for this kind of like swift motion that he did. Okay, let's continue. На углу Тисовой улицы действительно стояла полосатая кошка, но никакой карты видно не было. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of Private Drive, but there wasn't a map in sight. Yep, so that's basically word for word translation. Действительно, really, we can also say kind of вправду or правда. Стояла полосатая кошка, но никакой карты видно не было. And just to remind you why we have or, because like there was no map, yeah, whatever we don't have is the genitive case, and there is nothing that is a subject here. And when we have sentences that don't have a subject in nominative, the verb always defaults to to neutral. So, for example, in simple expressions like «мне нравится читать», so whenever we like some action, we use this «it» as the «оно» form, because «мне» is dative and «читать» is a verb, so it cannot be the subject. So «нравится» is the «оно» form, because we do not have a subject that the verb can agree with. Окей. И привидится же такое, буркнул мистер Дурсель. So here the original is a little bit different. What could he have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of the light. Okay, so here we have something more in the translation. So привидится, you guys probably know the word привидение. And that means a ghost. Да? So the ghost is something that что может привидеться, literally come into sight, come into vision, come to be seen. So привидение, привидится. Привидится же такое. Буркнул. Буркнул, it's kind of like this. Буркнул. Буркнул, again, something that is not supposed to be heard by other people, something we just like say to ourselves when we don't like something. Наверное, во всем были виноваты мрачное утро и тусклый свет фонаря. So again, a little bit more from the translator, because in the original we only talk about the trick of light, must have been trick of light. So here it basically probably what was in all that во всем there were this and this at fault. What was at fault? Утро и тусклый свет фонаря. So тусклый is something that is not a very bright light, like the light that's barely there. На всякий случай мистер Дурсель закрыл глаза, потом открыл их и уставился на кошку, а кошка уставилась на него. So in English we don't have this phrase, but it's a really good phrase to know. На всякий случай. На всякий случай, just in case. Да? На всякий случай я взял с собой деньги, когда пошел, или я взял с собой больше денег, когда пошел в кино. I know, something I just came up with, but just in case, just it works exactly like in English. Мистер Дурсель закрыл глаза, again perfective, he did close them, потом открыл их, and remember we had затем, потом, there's complete synonyms, затем, потом открыл их, потом открыл их, открыл, again, perfective, и уставился на кошку, а кошка уставилась на него. Уставиться is the verb, it means to stare at somebody, на plus accusative, на кошку, на него, на меня. And we even have this colloquial expression, like, чё уставился? Like, why are you staring at me? That can be, can sound a little bit aggressive. Мистер Дурсель отвернулся и поехал дальше, продолжая следить за кошкой в зеркало заднего вида. Okay. And here we have, as Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror. So he отвернулся, basically he turned his head away. Yeah, so he decided not to look at the cat anymore. Поехал дальше, started driving or kept driving. So поехать is по shows us the beginning of the motion. Продолжая следить за кошкой в зеркало заднего вида. Продолжая is another gerund, while he continued to watch the cat. So watch, следить, we saw it before when Mrs. Dursley was spying on the neighbors. Yeah, so следить, remember how I said, is when it is usually connected to like watching somebody. So here он следил, so he was watching the cat, continued watching the cat. Он следил за кошкой. Kind of tracking what the cat does. Он заметил, что кошка читает табличку, на которой написано «Тисовая улица». So he noticed that the cat is reading the sign that says «Привет, Drive». And that's pretty much what the what the original says. Нет, конечно же, не читает, поспешно поправил он самого себя, а просто смотрит на табличку. So here we have, again, somewhat creative translation. Yeah, no, looking at the sign, cats couldn't read maps on signs, so he, so that part is there, but the translator added, поспешно поправил он самого себя. Поспешно or quickly. Поправить is to fix something, to correct oneself. Поправил кого? Самого себя. So he corrected himself. So he said something or thought something, and then he corrected himself. Поправил самого себя. Ведь кошки не умеют читать, равно как и изучать карты. Cats couldn't read maps or signs. Ведь кошки не умеют читать. So we use уметь when we talk about specific skills. Равно как и. That's another way to say так же как. You know, так же, like also, same as. Так же, как и изучать карты. Мистер Дурсель потряс головой и попытался выбросить из нее кошку. So here, let me see, Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. That's a very good translation. So потряс головой, kind of like, yeah, he shook his head. And in this case, we use the instrumental case. Yeah, so потряс головой, помахал рукой, gave a wave with a hand. He did a little kind of like shaking movement with the head. So using these parts of the body as the instrument for the action gives us instrumental without any prepositions. Попытался, tried, выбросить из нее кошку. So in Russian we say literally throw something out of our head. Like выброси это из головы. Это плохая идея. Ну когда же ты выбросишь это из головы? Я же давно сказал, что это ужасная идея. Like basically, literally, like the way we're throwing out trash, we're throwing out some ideas or thoughts out of our head. So is родительный, and whatever we're throwing out is accusative. I'm sorry, is genitive. I said in Russian, родительный, but you probably know. And whatever we're throwing out is accusative. И пока его автомобиль ехал к Лондону из пригорода, мистер Дурсель думал о крупном заказе на дрели, который рассчитывал сегодня получить. As he drove toward town, he thought of nothing except a large order of drills he was hoping to get that day. Yep, that's pretty much literally what it says. So while his car was driving, and here we're using the verb of motion without any prefixes because he was in the process of driving. Yeah, so, and while he was driving, no need for prefixes. К Лондону из пригорода. К plus dative means towards to. So here we have like London here somewhere. Yeah, and we're moving towards it. Из пригорода is an addition. Yeah, because it just like explains better that he was living in the suburbs and he was going into downtown or into the main city. Mr. Dursley думал о крупном. Large, крупный is another way to say большой, but not in all contexts. Like, but like when you literally talk about the size of something. So we can say, for instance, крупный мужчина, like a big man, big in stature. Заказ на дрели, который рассчитывал. So here we have hoping. He was hoping. So надеялся. Надеяться is to hope. And рассчитывать is to literally to count on something. So I would say рассчитывать is a stronger word to express his thoughts, maybe, because he basically рассчитывал, he not only hoped, but pretty much he was sure that he was going to get that big order. Okay, we're going to stop here. And again, if you're listening to it, please add the comments if that was helpful, or if you still have other questions. Please read page 6 for the next time, and we're going to look at all of the vocabulary again. Thank you. Bye.